We're going to talk about how to write winning scholarship essays, and I'm going to introduce myself in just a minute, okay? But I always like to start off my presentations with good news, and so here is your good news for today. Grade 12 is your best opportunity to win scholarships ever. Okay, so there will still be opportunities for scholarships once you get into post-secondary, whether that's university or college. There will definitely still be opportunities. So I'm not saying, stop looking and don't apply or anything like that. But there are, more scholarships that are earmarked for students who are currently in grade 12 and who will be entering post-secondary directly from grade 12. So that is the best time. This is your best time to win scholarships. In fact, there has never been a better time in history to win scholarships for all kinds of different students. So it used to be that you had to be, the top student in order to win scholarships, but that is not the case anymore. That is a completely different now. There really are scholarships out there for pretty much any student. So you have this kind of like a golden window of opportunity that is available to you right now. So that's why I'm so glad that you're here with me today. So this is me. I am a former university admissions officer at both Dalhousie and UBC in Vancouver. And I started my business, My Campus GPS, because over the years of working with thousands of parents and students, I discovered that many students were missing out on funding through scholarships simply because they didn't know much about them. They didn't know how to find them. They didn't know how to apply for them. And even worse, they didn't know that they qualified for scholarships when they actually did. So they were missing out on this really important piece of information. I knew something about scholarships. Students needed to know something. So you put those two things together. And that's how I came up with my company, which is My Campus GPS. And really simply what I do is I help high school students find and apply for scholarships. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover in the session today. What are scholarships? We want to, really know what are these things, what you should do before you start writing and why that's so important. And then we'll talk about some tips for writing the essay and some things that you should always do with your applications. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So the first thing I want to acknowledge is that maybe writing the essay is not your favorite thing to do, or maybe, you're a bit nervous about this. So I just want to give you a bit of encouragement here. The essays that are on scholarship applications, they're not usually academic type of essays. They're normally self-reflective or reflective type essays. And basically what that means is they ask you to reflect on some of your experiences and tell them a little bit more about those. And we'll talk in more detail about that. But my point here is that, it's not this academic thing. It's not anything to be afraid of. It's really just you kind of highlighting some of the things that you've done and talking about what you learned from them. Okay, so hopefully that puts your mind at ease right off the beginning. So what are scholarships? Scholarships really simply are education funding that is offered by an organization, a funder. That might be a university, or it might be some kind of external funder like a community group, a bank, a union, employer, and those types of things. But the thing that identifies scholarships is that they are based on merit. And what that means is that you do have to earn them in some way. That might be through grades, although grades are not required for all scholarships, or it might be through something like community involvement, volunteering, and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, you will have more opportunities for scholarships based on, what you bring to the table. So what do I mean by that? If you have good grades, then yes, you will qualify for more scholarships. Although, like I say, It's not required of all of them, and sometimes it might be something like a 75 average rather than something that is really high. It might be through community involvement, volunteering, some type of leadership activities, any type of credential that you have. So from that, I mean something that is like awarded to you from an outside body, maybe like lifeguarding or Duke of Edinburgh or something like that. And paid work also looks great on scholarship applications as well. So you can see that there are lots of different things that you can bring to the table here. I would say in terms of some of the highest value type of activities is volunteering. A lot of scholarships will ask about your volunteer experience, and in particular, leadership. So the reason why these are important is because of the essay. So a lot of scholarship applications, the essay will focus on your community involvement and your volunteering, and sometimes specifically your leadership within those things. So that's why these are the highest value activities, because they're asked for the most often. Okay, we're going to look at what some of those questions are specifically in just a moment. So some things that you should do before you start writing. A lot of students want to get right into the writing part, but there I caution you about doing that. I would like you to kind of spend some time to really look at that application and make sure you know what you're going to write about. So before you start writing, you should read the entire application, get a good sense of the thing. Who is the funder? Who is the person or organization who is offering the money? What are their mission? What is their mission or their values? So what do they value? This information will be important so that you can highlight some of your information and values that align with theirs. The other thing that you can do is look at what kind of person are they targeting with this award? And if references are required, you might want to read that over and find out what traits and skills and qualities are they asking the referee to comment on. Those are things that are important to the funder, and those are things you want to highlight in your essay. You also want to think about, hey, why are they asking these questions? What information do they want to know by asking these questions? I will back up and say that the funder, the organization that is offering the money, they determine everything about the award. So they determine who it's for, if there's an essay, what the essay is about. They want to know something about their applicants. So you want to give them the information that they're asking for. And then look for other information or hints that you can find on the application as well. And sometimes they will give you like an essay rubric that will tell you kind of what you will be graded on. So so some applications do have this essay guide or rubric. And this is an example, a snip that I took of one a scholarship, and it actually said essay judging and how to win. So it gives you a list of some of the things that you will be graded on for the essay. And so in this one, you can see organization and grammar and spelling, punctuation. I mean, that's pretty common, that you're going to be graded on that. But the first thing is funny. So if you skipped over this part in the application, you might not know that your essay is actually supposed to be funny. And so if you didn't know that and you didn't do that, then you lost 20 points right off the get-go. So it's really important that when you are, before you get into writing the essay, you really have a good sense of who are they looking for, what should I highlight, what's important to this funder. Okay, and you should do that for each one as well, like each time you have a different application. Okay, so that's before you start writing. Let's talk about what you should be writing. So let's look at the main parts of a scholarship application. They are all different. Every single scholarship is actually different because, like I said, it's the funder who determines everything about the scholarship, and all of the funders are different. So therefore, all of the scholarships are going to be different. But what I will say is that many of them have some common things to them. So let's look at the main parts of what I would call kind of a full application, one that asks you for kind of most of the parts. So the first thing that they may ask you for is a transcript of your grades. Some will, some won't. Another thing that they may ask you for is a list of your extracurricular activities. Now, this is pretty common. This is just telling them the things that you participate in outside of your regular classes. Okay, so school-based activities, community-based activities, any type of programs that you were involved in, like say Duke of Edinburgh or something like that, any work experience, anything like that. So they basically, with this, they're kind of looking at how do you spend your time outside of your classes. They may require one or more references, and then there is the essay. So when you submit this information, they will have your a list of your grades. So they'll know kind of basically what grades you have. They will have that list of activities that tells them, okay, he or she participates in all of these different things. And then they'll have your reference that, tells them a little bit about who you are. So the essay, the purpose of the essay is to get to know you. Okay, it is not a time, unless I guess the question specifically asks you, but it is not a time to just, to give them a grocery list of all of your activities. I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this, and then I did that. The purpose is really to get to know you as a person. So that is what you should focus on in the essay. So rather than that list of activities, like just regurgitating your list of activities, usually what you should do is to focus in on one or two experiences and then tell them more about those. Okay, and we'll talk about what you should be covering in that. So what you should focus on. Most of these essays, like I said, they're reflective. So they ask you to reflect on your experiences and often pull out the learning, like what did you do and what did you learn from that experience? That is a very common type of essay question. Now, like I say, they're all different. So some of them will not be like this. But, it is very common for scholarship funders to have these reflective type of questions, ones that, again, ask you to reflect on those experiences and tell them more about it and pull out the learning from it. So it is not a grocery list of your activities. That doesn't tell, well, like I did this and then I did that and then I did this and I did that. That doesn't tell us anything about you in terms of why you got involved in those activities. Like, why did you join that? What did you learn from your experience in that? And how might you use that learning in the future? How did that change you? Or, what skills did you develop and how are you going to use those skills in the future? That deeper kind of information, that tells them about you, and that is the purpose of the essay. So you want to get personal, talk about your motivation for getting involved in the things that you do, your learning, and then how that kind of changed you or affected you in some way. It's best to have one or two examples and go deeper with those rather than those superficial kind of, what you did. So, you have to talk about what you did. We need to know kind of what you did just to give us context, but it's just as important to talk about why you did it and what you learned from the experiences. So sometimes people will say, you want to tell your story. Your story is just some examples, or maybe it's just one example that you're going to use that tells us a little bit more about who you are as a person. Yeah, so you need to have a little bit of depth of experience, and that leadership is the highest value activity because it gives you a lot of content for your essay. So because these questions are going to ask you to talk about your motivation, talk about your learning, then they will they will require you to have some of that deeper kind of experience, right? So if you only have like, one-off activities, a car wash here and a one-day thing there, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to answer those questions that say, what's your most meaningful volunteer experience? If you don't have a lot of experiences that are meaningful that you can talk about. So, a lot of times they will talk about the impact as well. So impact means like what changed, what changed from before to after, through that experience, your attitude, your actions, your feelings, and then what did you do about that as a result. So let's look at some common essay questions, and that will give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. So a very common type of essay question, often asked by universities, but sometimes through other funders as well. Discuss a time that you faced a challenge. How did you tackle it, and what was the outcome, and what did you learn from the experience? Now, the question might be asked in a different way, but this is the basic theme of the question, is about how did, you faced a challenge, what did you do, what kind of coping mechanisms did you develop, and then what did you pull out of, what learning did you pull out of that experience? So that's one common one. A second common one is about your leadership. So discuss a situation where you were a leader. What qualities do you feel were required to be successful? And then what did you learn from this experience? Okay, so I'm going to talk more about leadership in just a minute because it is a little bit wider. It's a little bit more broad than what a lot of students think. And the third one, and probably the most common type of question on scholarship applications, is about your volunteer contribution. So how do you contribute to your community? Describe your most significant volunteer contribution. Why was it meaningful to you? What did you learn from this experience? So like I say, these questions, it's really nice when you have some good, robust activities that you can describe in your answers to these questions. And again, they're looking for that impact. So, you went from this to this. There was some kind of change or growth as a result of you taking part in this organization, through this experience, whether that's a challenge or your leadership experience or whatever. And there was some kind of learning or result from that. So yeah, so the impact, that's why they're asking about what was the outcome? What did you learn? What was your contribution? So they're looking for that result. Okay, and I will say that, the majority of essay questions these days aren't, the 1,000 or 2,000 word essays. Most of them are usually between 300 and 500 words. And 500 words is about 2/3 of a page, single spaced. So they're not super long. But in a way, sometimes it can be more difficult to write a short one rather than a long one. So, but I just want you to know that you're not usually expected to write over 500 words, put it that way. Okay, so I said I was going to just touch on leadership a little bit because I think students underestimate some of the experiences they have and their leadership in them. So what is leadership? Really, in the broadest sense of the word, is just anytime you take responsibility for something. So you kind of step up to the plate, take something on, the buck stops with you now, you have to do that thing and produce something. And that's really more about what leadership is in that broad sense. So, it's not just about being student council president or, president of a club or something. Students can have a lot of great leadership, that isn't tied to those specific roles. Okay, so it's not necessarily about your role, it's more about what you did. So, I use the UBC personal statement instructions because they say it really well. Leadership can come in many forms. Any act of responsibility or initiative that serves others is a form of leadership. So 2 things to remember: take responsibility for something, and then what you're doing serves others or helps others in some way. So try to think about your leadership a little bit more broadly than just, oh, I'm not student council president, so I can't, I can't qualify for anything that has leadership. Okay. Now, leaders, what they do, what kind of sets them apart is that they take action. And that's what this is about. Leadership is about taking action and taking on something and doing something about it. Okay. And that's really why it's a high value activity. Okay, so these self-reflective essays, they're asking you about your experiences, to do that self-reflection, and then to demonstrate self-knowledge, which is what you're doing in the essay. You're talking about your motivation for getting involved in that thing, or your motivation for taking on the challenge, for example. You're talking about what you learned from that experience. And then another nice thing to put is about how you might use that learning in the future. How will you take those skills that you have developed in high school and take them to the community at Queen's University or at UBC or wherever, you're applying. So how will what you've done in the past benefit them in the future? Okay. And then you're learning in the future also, it gives them kind of like an idea that, hey, I'm not done yet. I'm going to continue on to do these great things in the future. And that's what the funder is looking for. They're looking to reward you for what you've done in the past, but they're also looking for that potential in the future as well. And then they can say, hey, we supported this student and look how great they are. Okay. So, like I say, a lot of your focus should be on what you learned from that experience. Okay, some other things that you should just always do, I guess. The first thing you should always do is make sure you answer the question. And you're probably saying, well, of course, Janet, I'm going to answer the question. But you would be surprised how many people don't answer the question, or they don't answer it very clearly. Sometimes it's a multi-part question, and they might answer 2 out of the 3 questions as well. Okay, so you need to go back and make sure that you've answered the question. So my tip here is to read the question and then actually go into your essay and find the part where you've answered that question. Okay, like, can you highlight it? Is there a sentence or 2 where you actually answer that part of the question? And then if it's multi-part, move to the next question and say, okay, that next part, where did I answer the question down there? And if you find it difficult to find the answer in your essay, then you probably didn't answer it very clearly. Okay, and you might need to kind of make that a little bit clearer. The second thing is that I get a lot of questions from students that say, how formal should it be? Or, how academic kind of sounding should it be? And really, with most of these essays, these self-reflective essays, it should just sound like you. Okay, so if you're a very formal person and you're a formal writer, then of course be formal, but really it should be almost conversational. Again, the purpose is to get to know you. Okay, so it should sound like you. So maybe a way to think about it is, that you should write the way you talk and then just make it a little bit more formal. Okay, yeah, write as you would speak and then just make it a little bit more formal. And the third big tip is to follow the directions, and that is because If you don't follow the directions exactly, you run the risk of being disqualified, and that happens a lot more than what people think. Okay, so I've been in the room with the committee, and they've been just basically separating the people who followed the directions versus the people who didn't, and they're not even reading the applications from the students who didn't follow the directions. And that is not because the committees are mean or anything. It's just because it's their job to make sure it's fair and equal to everyone. And if someone submits 2 references and they were only supposed to submit 1, then it's no longer fair to everyone who submitted 1. So I make sure that you follow the directions. Now, this can actually work in your favor, though, actually, because if you follow the directions and some other people don't, you could actually win the scholarship and not even be the best candidate. Okay, so that can actually work in your favor. So the point here, just follow the directions. You can make a checklist of all the items that you need to include, and then just have someone double check that for you to make sure you covered off everything. Okay, so what is my best tip? Something that might surprise you, actually. My tip is that you can't wait for free time to do this stuff. If you wait for free time, it will never happen because nobody seems to have any free time anymore. So I don't know where it all went, but nobody has free time. So do not wait for free time. You need to make time to do this stuff. Okay. The other thing that I will tell you is that there's really no easy button for this stuff. There are ways to make it easier, and that's what I help students with, but there's no kind of like gaming the system or anything like that. It does take some time to do this and to be successful with it. So no easy button. One of the best pieces of advice that you will hear from students who have been successful is that they basically considered it their part-time job to find scholarships and to apply for them. And this is from one of my former clients, is that she basically considered it her part-time job to find and to write applications. And I do suggest that students apply for at least 10 scholarships throughout their grade 12 year. Okay, so biggest tip, you need to make time. I suggest you put it in your schedule, like actually put it in your Google Calendar or whatever it is that you use, like a meeting with yourself, basically, to make time to do this stuff. Otherwise, it just probably won't happen. And if you think, well, I'm busy. If you look at it this way, there are 720 hours in a month. If you can commit 3 to finding and applying for scholarships, then you will still have 717 hours to do all of the stuff that you normally do. Okay. So this is my final battle cry to all of you to go forth and make those applications. You can't win if you don't apply. So, so that's my last piece of advice for you, is to actually, go forward, make those applications. The more you apply for, the more chances that you have to win. Okay, so here's what we learned. Grade 12 is a golden opportunity for scholarships. It will not come again, so this is the best time for you to capitalize on this opportunity. Read the application fully before you write, get a good sense of what they're looking for and why, and then provide that for them on the application. The purpose of the essay is to get to know you, so make sure that you are letting them get to know you through your experience and what your motivation was, what you learned from that, and discuss that impact from the action that you took. Okay. And then the best tip is to not wait for free time. You need to make time. You have to take some action and actually make those applications. So this is my website and a snip from the front or my homepage there. On that, you will find a lot of great free information and my services. So as far as my services, I work with students in grade 11 and grade 12. So in grade 11, we focus on preparing for scholarships in grade 12. So through that, I have a boot camp, which is just like a 2-hour workshop. And then I also work one-to-one with students and coach them on things that they should be doing to be successful with scholarships in grade 12. And then for grade 12 students, I have a guidebook where you can, it's like a do-it-yourself information. I do the one-to-one coaching, and then I have small group scholarship essay writing workshops, and I have a workshop happening tomorrow. If anyone would like to join that, you actually write a practice essay in the workshop with me. So it's an applied session, an applied class. It's not just me talking for 2.5 hours. Okay, the other thing I want to point out to you is that I have a download available for you at my booth that's free, that you can just go there and grab. And that gives you some more information about how to find scholarships, some essay themes that we talked about, and some further information that you might want to pick up. So this is me, Janet MacDonald, and my Twitter is probably the best place to keep up with me. That's where I am the most often. I actually also post scholarship opportunities on my social media as well. So that's another great reason to follow me there. Okay, so that's all I have to talk about, but I would like to get to some questions. Okay.
Janet, there are quite a few questions.
Okay, let me just see if I can get to, oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, if you just scroll to the top and then you read them out with one by one, however you want, I can put them up on the screen for people to read along.
Okay, do you have resources to help a mature student find scholarships? So the best place to start to find scholarships is actually through scholarshipscanada.com. So that is the search engine from the School Finder group who are sponsoring this event here today. And through that, you can make a profile and then start to be matched with scholarships that match your profile. So scholarshipscanada.com is the best place to start looking. Other than that, it's just all of the other places, the community groups, the university that you're applying for, etc. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Are there any scholarships that don't require an essay? Yeah, I'm sure there are ones that don't require an essay, or there are some that just require an essay and nothing else, which is kind of nice, so that there's no grades, no references, no volunteering, nothing, just an essay contest, basically. But yeah, there are ones that don't require an essay. A good example of that are the university ones that are automatic. So basically what those ones are is when you apply to the university, they, with the appropriate transcript, they just do a simple calculation of your grades. And they all do that a little bit differently. So there's no standardization there, unfortunately, but they just do a calculation of your grades. And then based on that, calculation, they will offer you certain levels, I guess you would say, of scholarships based on whatever your average is. So that's a kind that doesn't require doesn't require an essay. Are there scholarships for grade 10 students? Okay, yeah, so grade 10 and 11, or before grade 12, I guess you would say. There are some scholarships for students that students can apply for before they get to grade 12, but honestly, not very many. Okay, but they do exist. Again, scholarshipscanada.com is going to be your best place to start to look for those there. Yeah, okay. Oh, this is a good question. How does one demonstrate financial need? Okay, so remember when I said that it is the funder who determines everything about the scholarship? The funder also determines financial need. Okay, so so there's no one definition of financial need. It is determined by the funder. So the one funder might say it's, in family income below whatever, and another funder might have a different number there. If it's not stated explicitly on the application itself, like this is what demonstrated financial need means, then you can contact the funder and ask them, what would qualify as demonstrated financial need. And as far as what the kind of proof, they require, again, that is determined by the funder. It might be tax returns, like a copy of your tax returns, or it might be something else that's a little easier than that, I guess you would say. Normally, you should only have to provide that proof if you are being awarded the scholarship. So, funders shouldn't be asking you that unless you're actually chosen for the scholarship. Now, demonstrated financial need may be a component of a scholarship, but it is the main thing that determines a bursary. So a bursary is different than a scholarship. Bursaries are normally based, exclusively on demonstrated financial need or mainly on demonstrated financial need. And there's not usually a merit piece to bursaries, whereas there is a merit piece to a scholarship. So you do have to earn them in some way. Okay, if you cannot volunteer a lot because of personal issues, is this included in the essay or looked at by scholarship? That will, I guess, depend on the funder again. If they're looking specifically for volunteer, like if the scholarship is specifically for volunteer work, then I guess you would have to let them know why you don't have a lot of volunteer experience. And that can be sometimes important because, maybe you have family responsibilities, you have to look after siblings after school, so you can't volunteer or whatever. So I would explain that, yeah. Oh, okay. So some scholarships I've looked at ask for a nomination from my school. Yes, that can happen. Do you have any tips to get recommended? Well, I mean, really, that's up to your school. And sometimes what the school itself will do depends, but they all have different processes, I guess. But what the school will sometimes do, especially if it's a big school and there are a lot of people who want the nomination, they will have an internal competition to get the nomination. So it's really important that you let your guidance counselor know that you are interested in these ones for a nomination, and find out how the school, their process for giving that nomination. Yeah. Oftentimes it's not just one student. Sometimes it's like based on the student population or whatever. So you might get more than one kick at the can, basically. Okay. Does word count really matter? If there is a scholarship with a range, if your essay just reaches the word count, will that hurt your application? As far as the word count goes, you should never go over the word count. I mean, that's one of those things where you might be disqualified if you do go over the word count. Let's say it's a 500 word essay. I would shoot for 400 words. 300 might be kind of, cutting it close, I would say. I would go for about 400 if it's a 500 word essay. It should be, between 350 and 400 at least, I would say, to get your point across of whatever it is that you want to talk about. I think brevity is a positive, definitely. If you can say it in fewer words, great. But it would be difficult to answer a 500-word essay and anything less than 400 words and do a good job, I guess. How would I get access to my transcript? That's a great question. And that needs to be asked to your counselor at your school, okay? And sometimes the scholarships will ask for a transcript, and you need to know what they mean by that. Like, is it an official transcript, not an official transcript? Will a grade report do? Usually not. So make sure that you understand what it is that they're asking, and that you ask your school to give you the appropriate document, again, so you're not going to be disqualified. Okay. Yeah, okay, so there's another question there about personal life interferes with your ability to participate in extracurriculars. That can be explained on your application. Yeah, so maybe siblings, or maybe you have a parent who is ill, or some students live on a farm and they have a lot of, jobs that they need to do that take them away from being able to contribute to their community. But if you're able to contribute to your community and you're not doing it, then, that's another situation. I live in a very small town where there are not a lot of opportunities. If I could find one online or another way to engage outside my town, would that still have the same effect in an essay? Absolutely, it would. Anytime you take the initiative to contribute to your community, that is a positive, okay? And you're absolutely right. In smaller towns, you don't have as many opportunities, but when you find them, when you take the initiative and you actually go out and you find those, that is a very positive thing, okay? And that will look really good for you to take that initiative to do that. So I definitely encourage you to do that.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think we only have about 3 more minutes left to answer questions. Then I might ask you to wrap it up.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Is the guide free? No, it's not. Well, the one at my booth is free, but definitely that's just a 2-page guide with some links and everything. And then the second question was, do I guarantee scholarships? No, I do not. The way that I work with students is that, that thing that I said at the beginning, the more that you bring to the table, it's that gives me more to help you to work with. Okay. So, but no, I don't. At the end of the day, it's the student who applies, who makes those applications. I don't have any control over that, so I can't guarantee anything there. Okay. How do we access the booth? Jack, can you talk about that, please?
I'm going to ask a colleague quickly how to do that, because I have not really learned about.
Yeah, so I think just at the, at your main
Actually, I'm pretty sure. Can I share my screen? Yes, I can. So if I pull this up, so you go to your homepage right here. Before, you should be able to go to like view all exhibitors, I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
and then
that's it.
from there you can find you, and then the student/viewer can go to that booth.
Yeah, exactly. So you go all exhibitors basically from that.
So yeah, I can show again quickly. So if you go to your homepage of the event, you go home, you'll be here where you find the calendar, all the events you're going to watch. You'll go to view all exhibitors, and then you'll look for Janet's company, which I believe is I don't. Yeah.
My Campus GPS. Yeah.
Yep. It should. Yep. So there you go. So that is how you would go access the booth, for anyone wondering.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does your service cost money? Yes, it does. It's a business. let's see, should your personal essays be written from the first person or the third person? They should be written from the first person, I would think, unless it's specifically stated to discuss yourself in the third person. So it should be I did this, I did that, right? Is Canada, I think they mean, is Scholarships Canada the only place to find scholarships? I think, I don't know where that question went now, sorry. But there are, scholarshipscanada.com is really the most comprehensive of the databases or the search engines out there, but there are other search engines as well. So, but I do suggest you start with scholarshipscanada.com because it is very comprehensive. It's absolutely free. You can go on there at any time, set up your profile, and start to get matched with scholarships that match your profile. And that's just a great place to start.
And unfortunately, that's all the time we have.
Okay.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. Well, I thank you everyone for coming, and I'm going to go over to my booth and try to answer more questions over there if you want to come over and chat with me over there. But thank you everyone, and thank you, Jack.
Of course, I'm gonna try to put a link to your booth in the chat. I'm just forgetting, what is it called again?
My Campus GPS.
Whoops. There we go. My Campus GPS. So here is Janet's booth. Here's the link in the chat right now. You can access that link and you can head over there to her booth to see more about this and what she does. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.